Put bluntly, this is something that I think I deal with a lot, is dealing with anger. And so this sermon is more for me than really for you guys. But it's something that I would like to share with you this morning. Now, as most of you know, my wife is pregnant with our third child. We're excited. We're very excited about that. But, one of the things she told me during the first trimester was she could not stand me. Period. Didn't matter what I did. I could have said, "Hi, good morning," and she didn't like me because the tone of my voice was wrong when I said good morning. Or I grabbed something for her, but I didn't do it the way she wanted, or this or that or the other. And during the first trimester, that just kind of was the emotion that she had, was just not liking me very much, to the point of where she was angry at me a few times, But that's the way anger goes, isn't it? It doesn't really make sense. You get annoyed, you get upset, you get aggravated, and it leads to something that the emotion just doesn't fit, or doesn't warrant. The situation doesn't warrant the emotion. Most of the time. Not saying all the time. There are a few times where anger may be warranted because somebody does something to you or something like that. But 9 times out of 10, if we're honest, anger is not the right emotion to deal with the situation at hand. But it's an emotion that we all deal with pretty regularly. Because of our human nature, we have a tendency to overthink things and to then take those things that we have in our head and apply our emotions, our feelings to a situation, and then make assumptions, and then all of a sudden we're in a situation where we don't need to be in as far as our mental state is concerned. And we're going to talk about this morning, we can't talk about the full extent of anger. It's just a pretty broad topic. And we would be here for a while. But we're going to deal with a small piece of it this morning. But to set our minds up for this, I want to read a story out of Numbers chapter 20 to set the stage for our discussion this morning. If you know your Old Testament history, this is around the time of the Exodus. Following the Exodus, while the children of Israel are out in the wilderness. So this is between the Exodus and the children of Israel going into the promised land. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. And the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Would that we have perished with our brothers when our brothers perished before the Lord. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness that we should die here, both we and our cattle? And why have you made us to come up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It is not a place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and Aaron your brother, and tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water. You shall bring water out of the rock for them and give drink to the congregation and their cattle." And Moses took the staff from before the Lord, and as he commanded him, then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock and said to them, "Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice, and water came out abundantly. And the congregation drank, and their livestock. Interesting story. You see the power of God working here. There's no water in this wilderness, and God provides water for the children of Israel. But as we look through this story real quick, you notice something that's interesting. Moses gets angry. But why did he get angry? Was it just he got mad because he got mad? Did he have no control of his emotion, or did it seem like it was a valid reason? Did it appear to be a valid reason? You've got millions of people complaining to you about water. You're in a desert. Go figure, there's no water here. And you've got these people saying, why did you take us out of the land of Egypt to bring us to this wicked or this evil place? This is a man who helped you escape from slavery. This man and God made you a free people. Yet from the very beginning, you're a congregation of people that are complaining, constantly having an issue with this man, with God. You know, I see a little bit of patience from Moses in a way, because he has dealt with this congregation of people, this assembly of people, constantly complaining. It was water one time before. It was the fact that they didn't have any bread to eat, so God provided manna. It was the fact that there was no meat to eat. I got bread, but I don't have meat, so then God provides quail. Each time the children of Israel complain and complain and complain and have issues, and you can almost feel I feel it just coming up. And this is another instance. The people are out of water, and guess what? Let's complain. God, why didn't you take care of me? Moses, why didn't you take care of me? And so Moses' response from a human standpoint seems justified, doesn't it? Hear now, you rebels. Shall we bring water from this rock? So the reality of anger is sometimes that emotion may be warranted. It may feel justified. You know, Webster defines the reality of anger. Webster defines it as a strong feeling of displeasure and usually of antagonism. I would be pretty displeased with the people constantly complaining to me. That would be legitimate. Constantly having an issue with me. Strong's says it's a desire that is a violent passion, by implication, punishment, anger, indignation, vengeance, wrath. The reality of this is anger is an emotion. It's a feeling that people have. It's an impulse. It's a desire. It's a violent emotion. Here's a problem. Anger itself is not wrong. The fact that Moses was angry at the children of Israel was not wrong. The fact that Moses called them rebels and said that to them, to their faces, you rebels, was not wrong. The fact that he had that emotion was not wrong. Because you can be angry and not sin. Ephesians 4 verses 26 through 27 says, be angry, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil. So here's where the problem occurs with us a lot of times. We get angry and then give the opportunity to the devil to use that anger against us. Moses did exactly that. And because he let the anger dictate his actions, because he let the anger and the emotion control his movements from that point on, God said, because you do not believe in me and uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people, you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. Moses sinned in his anger. And when he sinned in his anger, there was a major consequence for him. The consequence was that the man who brought these people out of Egypt and was going to take them to the promised land, he himself was not allowed into the promised land. That's a pretty steep price for getting mad, isn't it? Pretty steep price for just letting your emotions get the better of you one time. But here's what happened. When Moses got angry, he said, "Shall we bring water out of this rock for you?" See, when we get angry, we take a lot of things personally, and we make those things so personal that now the glory comes to you whenever you do something, right or wrong. Moses was saying, I'm the one getting this water for you guys out of this rock, not God's going to provide this water for you. His anger caused him to sin and take glory away from God and did not uphold God as holy in front of the people. So, how serious is it to control our anger? From this passage, I think you could say it's pretty important that we control our anger. One slip up, one instance, maybe your defining moment. One instance of losing your anger kept Moses and Aaron from entering the promised land. So as Christians, how do we keep our anger in check? As Christians, how do we keep this type of situation from happening? How do we have anger without sinning? James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. James is talking to Christians. He says, "My beloved brothers." You know, outside of the church, that the reality is that you can expect anger and people who have anger not to treat each other correctly because they're not holding themselves, or they may not be holding themselves to a higher standard. We have a responsibility to hold ourselves to a higher standard when it comes to anger. At the very least, we have that responsibility. So James says, "My beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." You know, Jerry likes the scriptures to show processes. There's a process that we can find in this verse. There are steps that we can find in this passage right here. Let everybody be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. And the reason we do that is because typically our anger doesn't produce righteousness. But if we want it to produce righteousness, do these things. That's what we're going to talk about this morning. Slow to speak. Sorry, quick to hear. Same thing. Quick to hear. Be a good listener. Pay attention to your notes. Be a good listener. Proverbs 18, verse 2, "A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion." When we're angry, we have a difficult time listening. I have a difficult time listening. My wife is shaking her head yes. When I'm angry, I struggle to listen because my opinion is the most important thing on the planet in that time. Well, most of the time in my mind, right? I wouldn't have the opinion if it wasn't mine, if it wasn't important to me. So therefore, when I'm angry and let my emotions get control of my actions, I'm not willing to listen. I don't want to hear. I would rather say what I want to say. Proverbs says, "A fool only expresses his opinion." Because you don't want to know. You don't want to understand. Proverbs 18, verse 13 says, "If one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly, and shame. When we answer a question, let me phrase that. When we answer somebody and state our opinion without even knowing what the question is, most of the time we look pretty dumb, don't we? We're just looking to say what we want to say without really understanding what's going on in this situation. So a good listener is going to be somebody who's not going to just give an answer without understanding the situation. A good listener is not going to be somebody who's just wanting to say what they want to say. A good listener is going to try to understand the situation before they answer. Why is this person acting the way they are towards me? Why am I getting upset at this person? Why? That should be your first question. And not make the assumption that you know. Most of the time we don't. I'm not in your head. You're not in my head. Good listening requires a lot of different things. Requires patience. If I'm having an argument with somebody, if I'm angry at somebody else, it's really easy to lose my patience. But if you're going to be a good listener, you have to have patience. And that patience may be letting somebody else vent at you and say all the things, the nasty things they want to say to you. And you just have to grit your teeth and bear it. That may be the patience required because you're trying to understand that person. Good listening well, is an act of love. If I'm going to try to be a good listener, quick to hear, but my natural instinct is to fight back, is to argue back, I am showing that what they are saying, they are more important than my feelings. The person I'm talking to, is more important than how I feel. It's an act of love. A good listener is going to ask questions to try to understand, to try to clarify. Because when you assume, a lot of bad things happen. A lot of bad things happen. You can put tone into somebody's text messages. You can put emotion into their inflection of tone that they may not realize they're doing. You can put a lot of emphasis on their facial features because you don't understand the way they look. I am very guilty of being a person that looks mad all the time. That's just the way my face is. Grandma is shaking her head, yes. And it's not because I'm angry all the time. It's just my bone structure just sits that way. I'm sorry. But if you ask the question, why are you mad at me? A lot of things go away. Oh, I'm not mad at you. I'm just not smiling. I don't know. Ask questions. If you're a good listener, you're going to ask questions to clarify things. Not just assume. Being a good listener can minister. How many times have you wanted somebody to just listen? You're really struggling with something in your life. You're struggling with controlling that anger. Maybe that anger is towards God. That happens. Maybe that anger is towards some person. Maybe that anger is towards a situation. And you just need somebody to listen and hear the pain that you feel. Would you want that person to just be like, well, you shouldn't feel that way? Well, let's talk about all the reasons you shouldn't do this and that. If you don't want that, don't be that way towards others. Minister. Use listening to minister. And when you do that, it prepares you to be slow to speak and a thoughtful speaker. It prepares you to be thoughtful in how you answer, how you de-escalate anger, how you make sure people maybe come out of this situation as friends. Thoughtful speaker, a fool's lips walks into a fight, and his mouth invites a beating. I can't tell you the amount of times, if I would have just shut my mouth, the situation would have been a whole lot better. It would have ended a whole lot better. Rather than me having to fight through situations and having to re-explain, well, I didn't mean that, or, well, you said this, or I walk myself into a fight because I want to say something the way I want to say it. Growing up, getting into fights, most of the time started with me saying something or somebody saying something to me. Into a physical altercation because neither one of us could control our mouth. A fool's lips walks into a fight. But whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. As a thoughtful speaker, the person who's been doing their job as a good listener and has been learning the situation, understanding, has been ministering, I'm acting out of love. You restrain your words when you want to say something that's going to bite back. And by doing that, you know you're exercising prudence and wisdom. Because you understand, and we're talking to a group of Christians here, I know Jerry's heart. If he was to say something angrily to me, if I have a cool spirit, I'm going to understand that's not Jerry's heart. To hate me. To hurt me. But if I'm a fool, I'm going to fight back. I'm going to say, well, why did you say that to me? It's foolish. A man of cool spirit is a man that understands and can restrain his words. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Enough said. I think it'd be good if we use this type of acronym whenever we talk to people, especially when we're in that state of anger and emotional heightened emotions. To think before you speak. An acronym you can see pretty frequently in workplaces, corporations. They work on this type of stuff because people don't usually do that. Is what you're about to say true? Most of the time we can do that real well. Right? Even in anger, we can sure find a truth to say to people. Is it helpful, though? I can say something that's truthful, and I can say something that's helpful because it's fixing a problem you have. Is it inspiring? You better believe I can say something that's inspiring. What emotion am I inspiring becomes a question, but yeah, we can do all three of those things. Is it necessary? Most of the time we think it is, don't we? So here's the problem. We get to about thin. 9 times out of 10, we can get to about thin. But the K is where we fail. The K is what we don't want to do. We don't want to be kind in what we say. We want to say what we want to say. And it may be something that's true. It may be something to help them. It may be something that is going to inspire something in them. And it may be something that's necessary. But we choose not to be kind in how we say it. And I am one of the worst at that. I know it. Trust me. And it's a struggle. But it should be something that we work on. And it's something I am praying I work on. If we use the full acronym and think before we speak, you can truly be an inspiring person. You can truly be a thoughtful speaker. Controlled temper was the last thing that was said in James. It said slow to anger. Now, if I'm trying, it seems like it's almost like you're saying the same thing twice, right? Quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. I think what he's really saying here is self-control. Control the anger. Not don't get angry, control it. Control how it affects you. A hot-tempered man stirs up strife, and he who is slow to anger quiets contentions. Control how you let that emotion come out. Don't be a person that just flies off the handle. Don't be a person that just one thing will set you off. You know what's really interesting about anger? Here's the unpleasant truth that nobody likes to talk about. We say, well, you made me angry. Well, this situation upset me. This one thing, this. We find a whole lot of reasons. But the ugly truth is, we controlled that. There's a situation that I used previously in a sermon was, if you remember that safe zone area back there, we were putting that together, getting it built, putting the roof on and everything, and there was a work day that happened. Well, one of my friends, CB, he's not here, so I can say it. CB was poking fun at me. It was all in good fun. It was all in good fun. But for about 6 hours, he was poking at me. By about hour 5, I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a little tired of this. Then Michael jumps in as well. Now, he jumped in probably around hour 2, actually. But that's a relationship we have. We can poke fun at each other, and it usually doesn't bother us. But today, or that day, I decided to choose violence, I guess, because I said one more time in my head, I said one more time if CB says something, pokes at me, I'm going to get mad. Think about that. I chose, okay, up until this one point, I'm good. I will control it. I'm not really going to be mad. I'm not going to whatever. But just one more time, I'm going to choose to not control my temper. The unpleasant truth is we choose to not control our anger. We choose to let that emotion come out and control our actions. It's a choice that we make. Nobody makes you get mad. You choose to let yourself get angry. And you choose to let yourself not control your temper. Be not quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the hearts of fools. Cease from anger and abandon wrath. Do not get upset. It leads only to evil doing. If we control that emotion, if we choose to say, we don't set that line one more time, we don't set that line of, this thing is going to make me mad. We don't say, one person says this, I'm going to get mad. We don't set that kind of boundary in that regard, we won't be fools. It won't lead to evil doing. Because we want to be the type of people that produce righteousness of God. We want to be the people that when the world sees us, they see the righteousness of God. In this room, we are Christians. And it's great and easy to have this relationship of, well, you're nice to me, I'm going to be nice to you. When we step out in the world and they see us bickering and fighting and having issues with each other, constantly fighting, we're not showing the righteousness of God. If we have all three of these things, we're going to show that. If any one of them is missing, we're not. Any one of these things. If I choose to control my temper, if I choose to be thoughtful in the way I speak, but I'm not going to listen to you, I don't care what you have to say, I'm still going to say what I want to, it's going to be nice, and it's going to be said in a loving way, but I don't care what you say, I'm not producing righteousness of God. That's called being passive-aggressive. I can be nice, but man, it's a dig, because I didn't really care what you had to say. If I can't control my temper, I can listen and I can be thoughtful, but I can't control my anger. It's a violent personality, isn't it? If I can hear the words you're saying to me, if I can control my temper, but I choose to be harsh and mean and hateful with my speech, I become the person that yells, that screams at people, that is hurtful and breaks down relationships because I'm not being thoughtful in my speech. Any one of these break down, you are not showing the righteousness of God. We are not showing the righteousness of God. There's always two. There's always two. If one person out of those two chooses to not be a good listener, Christian one may be right. Christian one may be showing the righteousness of God, but you together are not. You together as a group are showing that as Christians, we're no different than everybody else because we can't be good listeners. We can't say something in a thoughtful and kind way. If any one of those break down on either side, we are not showing the righteousness of God. Let love be genuine. Love one another with brotherly affection. Show kindness to each other. Can you be angry? Yes. But do you need to let that anger control how you deal with each other? No. Love each other with brotherly affection. Love covers a multitude of sins. Live in harmony with one another. Are you choosing to go out and pick a fight with your brothers and sisters in Christ? Are you choosing to live in harmony with each other? Live peaceably with all. Verse 18 takes it broader than just your brothers and sisters. It takes it to the whole world. Live peaceably with everyone. Don't be the guy that when at work they're looking like, don't talk to him because he's going to go off on you. Live peaceably with all. Overcome evil with good. As a society, we don't typically talk about controlling emotions. As a society, we want our emotions to rule us. But as Christians, we should control our emotions, control our anger, and deal with it in a way that produces righteousness of God. That's what we're called to do. Those are the thoughts of the morning. I hope that something that I've said to you has been something that's benefited you in your walk. As I said before, this is a struggle for me. Laying it all out there. It's a struggle for me to keep my emotions in check, to keep anger from coming out. And I would ask for prayers on your part for me to help me with that, to be a thoughtful speaker, to listen, to control that anger. If you find that you're, as a Christian, struggle with this as well, the church is here and able to help, able to guide you and help you with dealing with this. Maybe you need a system in your life, a body of believers that can help hold you accountable to be better than you are. You can make that happen. Become a part of the body of Christ. Be baptized, wash your sins away. Become a new creature devoted to living a life of service and devoted to controlling your life so that you produce righteousness of God. Find you're one of either class, please come as we stand and sing song of invitation.